Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Deborah Viglione. Many of you have met me before. I want to do a series of videos explaining methylation. First of all, I am double boarded. I'm an internal medicine doctor and also boarded in anti-aging regenerative medicine. I have had an integrative medical practice since the 90s, and part of that has been treating what we call methylation disorders. So much so that I have a vast amount of clinical experience treating these disorders and would consider myself one of the nation's experts. No, I don't know everything. It's a very complicated subject, a very complicated process in the body, and I'm learning just as you are. I started a Facebook page where I'm going to post this as well as on YouTube to help people understand this better and to help them along in their quest for wellness. Because with today's world and the environmental toxicities that we're exposed to, people with these methylation disorders are particularly susceptible to getting sick from environmental illnesses. And I feel it's something that everybody needs to know about and knows more about it. However, and learn more about it. However, it is extremely complicated. I made a series of slides a number of years ago, and I thought, oh, I'm going to show everybody those slides. And I looked at it, and oh my God, they were just so complicated. So I've tried to simplify things, and what I'm going to do on this video is just give you an introduction to what methylation is and try to keep it as simple as possible. The next video I'm going to do after this is going to cover the two major gene defects that are very easy to actually have tested. After that, I will make a series of more complicated videos talking about specific gene defects and what we can do about them. But I thought I would start with the basics, because one thing I've noticed that a lot of people that have signed up my Facebook group, MTHFR/biohack methylation, are people that are new to this whole concept. Many of the people on there are experts and know a great deal about it, but I feel like I need to start with the basics to give people a better understanding. So I'm going to start with a share screen here. Here we go. Okay, so this is going to be an introduction to methylation. Now, if the slide will advance, I will be good. Jeez. There we go. Okay, so what is exactly methylation? It's a process of attaching a methyl group to a substrate. Now, that's wordy, but I'm going to explain each part of it. Okay, so a substrate is a material or substance on which an enzyme acts. So examples of such substrates are vitamins, hormones, DNA, neurotransmitters, and we'll go into more of what that is, chemicals, nerves, or the nervous system. Okay, and an enzyme is produced by the body to basically help reactions happen. And it's called a catalyst, which just kind of facilitates, makes the reaction go better and faster and use less energy. But the enzyme itself is not destroyed. It's just kind of recycled and used over and over. And they're usually proteins that the body makes. Okay, so this is a methyl group. As human beings, we are carbon organisms. Carbon is our basic substance. And this is a carbon group in the middle and 3 hydrogens that are attached. So that is a big deal. That is the methyl group. And what the methyl group does is it attaches to things. It either gets on or gets off of things. And when it does that, it is turning reactions and processes on or off in the body. It does both. Now, here's an example of a methyl group getting ready to attach to a strand of DNA. That's basically DNA right there. And it'll attach to one of these, what they call nucleic acids. And in doing so, it's going to turn something on or it's going to turn something off. So that's it, methylation in its simplest form. Okay, now this is the methylation cycle, and it's kind of blurry, but it's just there for you to realize just how complicated this process is. And I'm going to break it down, as I said, in a series of videos. We're not going to go through all of that at once. I couldn't even draw that out if I wanted to. Okay, so why is methylation important? Okay, I just said it turns genes on and off, but it does detoxifying of the body, the chemicals, the toxins. The liver has to have methylation going on for this to happen. It builds neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters have fancy names like serotonin, dopamine, and epinephrine. These are how our body functions, how our brain functions. They give us our thoughts and sensations of pain, just mood, everything. They're extremely important. It also helps us process hormones through our body in a good way. so that we don't have buildup of hormones or an excess that would cause cancer. It helps our immune system tremendously, and we'll go into this more detail further on. I think that's in my second video. DNA and RNA synthesis, production of energy, ATP is what the mitochondria make for energy. And also myelination is a protective coating on the nervous system, and it doesn't function well without it. Demyelination causes a number of neurological diseases. Okay, so this kind of shows where methylation fits in. Over here on the left, we've got the methylation cycle, which is that big diagram I showed you before. And then what it does, there's over 200 functions in the body. These little green circles on the outside are showing kind of the end product. We lose our neurotransmitters or dopamine. We don't, if you have a methylation problem, you don't make as much nitric oxide. That's very important for keeping our circulation healthy. Cell turnover, that's important so that the body can grow, repair, and eliminate waste. Then we've got membrane properties. People don't really understand the importance of a cell membrane, but that is basically the most active part of a cell. It controls what the cell does, what nutrients it takes in, what it puts out. So it's a very, very important function. Mitochondrial function. Mitochondria are the engines that run our bodies. Without mitochondria, we would have no energy. That we have other ways to make energy, but they're very inefficient. And basically 90% of our energy is made through our mitochondria. And then the limbic status, that's kind of like dopamine. It's a different part of the brain. Serotonin is, I call it the mood, the happy hormone. You need serotonin to feel good. Okay, so why is this important? Guys, these are all the diseases that have methylation involved. This is huge. If you look through this, cleft palate, that's a birth defect, but it's a birth defect that has its roots in a methylation problem. Spinal bifida, autism is an epidemic now. And a lot of that's actually how I got involved, was with the autistic population, people on the spectrum, finding out that they all had methylation disorders, neurotube defects. And we'll talk later when I get into the whole folic acid controversy about neurotube defects. That's where the earliest organ system that develops in the embryo. Some other things here worth mentioning, congenital heart defects, chronic fatigue syndrome. Back in the early 90s when I was in practice, that and fibromyalgia were new syndromes that were coming up, Gulf War illness. Nobody really understood those. And now that they've come more into the mainstream, we know more about them. Chronic viral infections. And under that, it's not really a chronic infection. It's a chronic infection, but not viral, but we could put Lyme disease in there. Anyway, so this gives you an idea of how important this is and how basic it is to our health and wellness and how we get through life. Okay, so methylation is regulated by enzymes, and we talked about them earlier. Enzymes require cofactors. They require vitamins and minerals to function. And these cofactors are required to complete and turn off methylation. So you can see it kind of all works together. And we'll go into that here as we move on. Okay, so when you lack cofactors like zinc, magnesium, vitamin B6, methyl B12, methylated folate, these reactions can't work. And I'll show you a diagram in a little bit about that. Other things that can get in the way, niacin actually depletes methyl groups, that carbon with 3 hydrogens. Antacids can affect it. A great deal of environmental toxicity can overwhelm the system and its ability to actually detoxify, particularly heavy metals such as mercury. And then the bottom, I got genetic mutations. That's actually going to be the focus of what we're going to talk about in my second video on this, because we're going to look at what we were dealt with genetically and how that affects our methylation. Okay, so what is going on? Where are we getting these neuroimmune syndromes? It's an extremely large and growing group of disorders. It affects people of all ages. I'd say, I made these slides years ago, guys, and I would say it's much more than 30% of the population. I mean, we're talking, autism, 1 in 9 maybe, 1 in 10, depends on who you talk about. Same with Alzheimer's disease. Everybody knows people that have one of these diseases, and it's very, very confusing and confounding. People are always texting me, I can't find a doctor who listens to me. I can't find a doctor who understands this. I can't find a doctor who will work this up. and it's true, in conventional medicine, they're really not teaching much about this, and it can be very frustrating to somebody that presents with symptoms. And here you can kind of look at what is going on when you have one of these disorders. And you may not manifest all of them. I do know people that have a lot of these confounding their illness, but what I see a good deal about in my practice is immune dysfunction, a great deal of inflammation, severe food allergies, poor healing, heavy metal toxicity, hormone problems right and left. I do a great deal of hormones, mitochondrial weakness, just, all of these things. It's a big deal. And we're seeing more infectious overgrowth. Lyme disease is a great example now. And so these are, again, some of the neuroimmune disorders, even migraine headaches. You never would really think about that, but it's a transient inflammatory process in the brain. I think that we're seeing a load of autoimmune disorders now, more of MS. I mean, things that were, kind of rare when I first started in medicine now are commonplace. And combinations. I actually have a patient that I can't remember offhand, but has been diagnosed with about 6 different autoimmune disorders. And when I went through medical school, they said, give the patient one diagnosis, not multiple. Well, this patient legitimately has multiple diagnoses. So the world is changing and our health is changing, and not in a good way. Okay, so I kind of indicate, why do doctors know about it? One, there's no test we can do to diagnose all of these syndromes. And it requires a practitioner to be knowledgeable in all these different areas. Guys, that's difficult. You don't learn all this stuff in school. You learn a little bit about all of those things, but people tend to concentrate in one area. And to treat these disorders, you really need to be versed in all of this, which requires a lot of continuing medical education outside of what you learn in medical school. It also requires a great deal of time spent with patients, trying to figure out what is wrong with them. And if anybody has been in the conventional medicine system right now, time is a precious commodity. Doctors spend, I think I read that they spend about, I can't even remember, but no more than about 10 minutes per patient. And it's not very long before they're actually, I think it was 1.5 minutes before the patient is interrupted. So it's really bad, and the current reimbursement structure does not allow physicians to spend time with patients. And so there aren't very many doctors like me out there that are willing to accept this challenge and try to help people get better. And the key that links all of these things together is methylated B vitamins. So everyone that has been diagnosed with one of these disorders does have a methylation deficiency. And that makes people deficient in B12 or methyl tetrahydrofolate, L-methylfolate, or folate for short, in their cells. Now, the next video I'm going to talk about is going to talk about 2 of the major gene defects, but there are many more. And so really 100% of people that have these diseases have a problem somewhere in methylation. Okay, now I look at genetics as the cards you're dealt. And epigenetics is the way we can modify our genes, the expression of our genes. We don't have to be, basically, just because you've got a gene defect, it doesn't mean that you have to get a disease or express that gene defect. We can do a lot with epigenetics and nutrigenomics, which is using nutrition to manipulate the expression of our genes. And that's what I do. I try to take an unfavorable genetic profile and do what I can so that the person does not come down with the disease, that we can support the pathway so that they can function normally and have a normal life. So it does, you have a predisposition maybe to a disease, but you don't have to have the disease. And it depends on what kind of triggers that you've exposed yourself to. And oxidative stress, which you guys have heard me talk about in other videos, that is huge. That's what initiates and propagates a neuroimmune syndrome or any disease. It's behind all diseases. And so getting control over your oxidative stress is paramount. Okay, and so this is the key that links the nervous and the immune system, as the methylated B vitamins. Now I'm going to stop here because that was the introduction, and I'm going to make my second video that goes into a little more detail. And I really hope this was helpful. Let's see. Sorry, I got to get this cut off somehow. I'll stop share. There we go. All right. Thanks for listening.